particular esteemed conference and the dignitaries and the crowd what we have in terms of their knowledge, skills. So I'm very eager to have a session on bring your own artificial intelligence, because as a CISO, my name is Venugopal, I'm the CISO at CSP Bank, and as a CISO, we are challenged with this particular new buzzword called artificial intelligence, and most of the business or my users are very advanced, or they wanted to actually bring in and then start using it, and before even technology teams actually make use of the full potential of artificial intelligence in the organizations. Right? Now, that also gives us an opportunity. Obviously, there are a huge opportunity for the organizations to improve upon its productivity. And at the same time, it also puts a lot of challenges for CISOs like us. Right? Now, I want to throw certain, some lights on the challenges what we face and what we can actually do as CISOs to improve the cybersecurity posture while we have this onslaught of AI, disruptive technology, influence in all the organizations, right? Now, not all organizations can actually, afford to have their own artificial intelligence security or artificial intelligence solution or product, because it requires a lot of effort, time, resources, and expertise as well, right? Now, we often bring or we acquire solutions or services from third party and make use of it. And even then, there will be a considerable amount of time, and we might not be able to tailor the specific, the end user level of requirements. For example, I obviously will select some of those aspects into my presentation. One of the use cases, how one of my employees actually used AI for his day-to-day tasks. So with this, I'll just start. So when you say bring your own AI, means or BYOAI, it's called basically employees bring their own artificial intelligence solution, or they access certain web service where the artificial intelligence service has been offered, or it will be an API or some sort of a SaaS service which they will consume too. It need not have to be one particular person, it can be a group of departments or someone who have a very specific or unique challenges which the technology team might not be able to solve, right? It can be automation activities, it can be very complex analytical capabilities, etc. So typically these solutions will be abstraction, because business will bring certain solutions or services for their productivity improvement. Technology or information security like CISOs or CISO organization might not have visibility. So that's why it's called abstraction. And then if the study shows that okay, use of AI in the organization improves nearly 70% of productivity, and that's a great improvement from what it was there earlier before the adoption of AI to what it is now. Right? And also, when compared to the global standard, as per the global standard, the use of AI in organization is around 78% today. But in India, especially in the knowledge sector, we have nearly 85 to 90% adoption of AI. So we are the first one, I would say, using AI more and more into their daily activities, to automate their activities. But how also now the challenges what we are actually having is resulting in terms of compliance issues, because not all AI align with the, let's say from a banking standard, not aligned with the RBI requirements or SEBI requirements or the security requirement or security policy which has been drafted in the organization. We also have privacy concerns. We don't know that model or the AI service, exfiltrate or give away certain privacy information or personal information of the organization or the employee who uses it. Right? And also have legal issues, because we don't know that solution has some sort of a model which is proprietary to certain organizations. Right? Because most of the time this AI which has been brought into the organization would be from an open source community. Right? And so those aspects are there. So I'm just putting one scenario which is actually happening in our organization. This is for one of the non-tech user in a country auditor who wanted to actually run a generated report on a daily basis. So he wanted to run this because every day he has to wait for the end of day function to come completed, because he has to stay awake at night to run this report. So he has to use access the database, the system's database, and generate, pull up those particular fields where he needs to generate this report based on the interpretive work, and import it, parse it to the fields whatever he refers to, and then generate the Excel file which he needs to send to his boss, right? And that report also requires to be submitted to various regulatory agencies. Now, this is a very routine activity with cumbersome activity, and there is also time constraint because it's not a live data. Obviously it's live data, but not they cannot on the fly generate it. They have to wait for the end of the function to complete, right? So what he did was he used one of the services from AI, a prominent AI solution, and then put a prompt saying that please help me to automate the daily report, right? So obviously the AI responded that you can automate this by using a Python script, and I'll help you to give you the Python script also, and you can able to generate the code. Obviously, he is a non-technical user. He said, I don't know the programming. But you gave me a solution. It is not helping me, but unless you give me the code. And instead of going to the IT or anyone, so he had actually asked the chatbot to give him a code, right? So that code had a well-written Python script or Python code was there, where you have a placeholder for the database name, host name, its IP address, the user ID which he's using, and there's also a placeholder for the password. So he happily put those details into that, and the system were able to connect. Of course, with the help of IT, he could install those surrounding system or supporting solutions into the organization, and then he was able to run this, and he was able to generate the report. The problem is not there, the problem comes later, and there was an option for, let's say, some of us who have used ChatGPT or those commercial chat solution will know that you will have an option to give your feedback or you give your prompt, feedback back to the system, which will allow you to reduce your cost of association. Now, there was, similar option came to him, so he had said, like, of course, I can share certain information back to the AI service with their consent, and he started communicating some of those part of the report also back to the AI service. Right? Now, this is a common situation where CISOs like us face in our organization. Now, how do we identify such usages and where do we put those breaks and how do we make use of the technology at the same time in a proper manner, in a compliant manner, and as from a risk-free manner is something that I would like to cover in the rest of the sessions. So if you ask 4 to 5 or at least 4 out of 5 executives about their opinion about AI, they always talk about the trust side. They always say that there is trust issues with AI because we don't know what we are actually being exposed to. Right? So there is a trust issue. And they are citing 3 examples. One, of course, from the cybersecurity angle. Then there is a privacy aspects also because they don't know what data it collects and then transmit back to the artificial intelligence systems. And they also talk about the accuracy of data. Sometimes we see that if you prompt for a very generic thing, they will not give you very specific or they will not do a proper research and then give you the data. So the responses would be very limited. Responses can be biased also. You would have seen misinformation, the usage of AI, misinformation and all those stuff. So it's sometimes it can be biased also. So they have concern on the accuracy of the data. So essentially we have 3 issues. One, it allows for data exposure. Second, in terms of not meeting organization standard, as we discussed earlier, and it also lacks visibility. And wherever the lack of visibility means that the security is also a challenge. We have a challenge in implementing security because we don't know what the solutions or software people uses. And unless we know, we cannot be able to put guardrails, right? So these are 3 broad concerns CISOs face. Now, to mitigate, we need to have a good understanding of the artificial intelligence as a framework. Right? So, any artificial intelligence solution will have 3 basic components, if you see. One, of course, the data, which it uses to train this model, right? The model which will actually work on getting you the right data and the usage. So the data is used, you obviously use the data from multiple sources. You use it from public sources, you use it for your own corporate, databases like the gentleman who we saw there earlier had used. Or we also use it for, a proper, systemic data which is used for AI purposes. Now these data are analytics. Now these data will be used to train the model for a period of time. It learns it, machine learning, it learns and then adapt the model. And then that model will infer. The inference is nothing but moment of truth from an AI standpoint, right? That's the result. If the result is accurate and the result is apt, you say the AI is true. If the result is bad, doesn't give you what you wanted, then obviously the AI solution is not. Now, when it comes to securing the AI framework or say AI solution, we need to think about securing each of these models. We need to think about securing the data. We need to think about securing the model itself. Some slides. So we were talking about the model. So protecting each of these layers is important. We need to secure the data, we need to secure the model, and secure the use of AI. Right? So all these three aspects are important to protect the artificial intelligence and the BYOAI adoption in organizations. So let's see how do we protect them. What are the challenges in each of this? So first is the data. Right? So from a data standpoint, these are the various threats which can happen. There's something known as data poisoning. Data poisoning is that someone who unauthorized modification, they make unauthorized modification to the data to give a wrong input or wrong output, right? Or they give a biased output. So data poisoning is all about modifying this particular data which is fed into the artificial intelligence systems. And in case the adequate security is not being taken, especially when it comes to BYOAI, where the data is being given from public sources, right? Because most of the time organizations, they might not require a real access to the organization data. They might be accessing it from a public sources. And if that data is not from a reliable sources, then we will have challenges. It will give you a wrong input or wrong output as well as a biased output, right? Unreliable or inconsistent. And because BYOAI is used by multiple users across the department, not everyone is going to use the same software, right? So they might be using multiple AI solutions or services. And each of these AI have its own models or its own data also, right? So then the outcome it may not be consistent, the outcome may not be reliable, even from productivity standpoint. So someone should govern the usage of the AI and the sources and the model which it adopts. So that's what the challenge when it comes to BYOAI. Next is the data which actually it produces the outcome can also go through an exfiltration, because since it is not part of the organization security framework or structure, the data may not lie in our secure corporate database or vault. So people can exfiltrate that data. Suppose I am making use of AI to generate, just like that gentleman whom we saw a related report. If it is not stored in the corporate data server, and naturally if it is lying on his desktop or it keeps in shared folder or let's say one of the cloud folders, then there are possibilities that data can be exfiltrated. So the exfiltration and leakage are only one difference. Exfiltration is intentional, leakage is accidental. So leakage is mostly, when it comes to BYOAI, most of the time, the first impact to the organization would be data leakages, because inadvertently they would have published it in one of the cloud folder, or they would have shared with their friends, or they would have sent it through mails, right? Now, this might not be protected because that would have not been part of our, let's say, DLP. Even if we have DLP, unless we know that this is the kind of data which they generated, and we put the policy to detect and prevent that particular data, it might even slip through. So you need to have a mechanism to know what kind of data which from these BYOAI system users generate. So, and that has to be aligned to our policy and protect. So, data leakage and data exploitation are the two issues. Now, as a CISO, what are the mechanisms we can take, or what are the measures or radars we can take? First and foremost, the data discovery. It is easy to, while still it's a challenge for most of the CISOs who have recognize that, to discover the assets in your organization. The company-owned asset, at least we can able to recognize it. But these sort of assets, especially the softwares or solutions which has been acquired, which has not been part of the IT's asset inventory, to discover it and then catalog it is also a challenge. So one mechanism is to have a proper discovery mechanism to our endpoint systems. Agent-based scanning need to be done to ensure that which is a sanctioned and unsanctioned software running in this systems. And that can also be coupled with application whitelisting and other technology which we anyway use. Right? So as conversation anyway we will have some sort of technology to say that these are the authorized softwares to be adopted by the organizations. If there are unauthorized softwares, we need to highlight it, we need to look at their particular security, do a risk assessment, and start adopting appropriate controls. From a BYOAI case, if the user does not actually inform the IT department that they are going to use the service for their usage, then this is one way of identifying kind of softwares and enforcing the security controls. Next is the classification. So you need to classify the AI or the solution of services based on certain classification criteria. For example, AI which require access to, let's say, regulatory data, or a PCA data, or a PII data. So those AIs need to be classified, and the data which the users also need to be classified. And you need to have a clear-cut framework to say that, okay, this is PII data, a third-party AI can use it, or BYOAI team can use it, or the users of BYOAI can use this particular data. You can tag it, classify, and you can also apply other controls like access control and cryptography to ensure that only that particular software or only those particular users can access it. And the cryptography keys to ensure that organization key is being used, even if it got exfiltrated or leaked, attackers will not be able to read those data. Right? So that's why all these controls and right side is important when it comes to guarding BYOAI controls. Next is respect to model. So we discussed the competence, the data, the model, and the usage. So how do we protect the data, which is AI uses, is what we saw earlier. Now we need to see how we protect the models. So the model is basically a component which typically be acquired. It may not be developed because, as I mentioned initially, not every organization can develop an AI model. They might not have the resources or experience in developing an AI model for themselves. So typically we acquire it. We leverage the existing model. We might customize it, we use it in our environment and use it. So those models might not be meant for our organization. They might have meant for some other organization. It might be open source also because we don't know what kind of code, what kind of software is being the solution is being developed. There can be malicious software. There can be any kind of biased models are available outside. Or it can even be a model which is not being trusted by your organization or cannot be trusted by your organization. So, and it also has certain interfaces with or backdoors or which might not be under the control of the organization. For example, uncontrolled AI. In spite of, let's say, while it's giving you the data, there can be an API connection which is going back to the author of the open source provider to give a feed that, okay, hey, this user from this particular organization has developed these reports, and these are the key data feeds. Can even scan, scavenge it, and scroll down specific data pattern and then send it across. So unauthorized or uncontrolled APIs and other things. Third is in terms of plugins. Most of these APIs also require certain plugins. It can be browser plugin, it can be noise plugin, or any application also. Especially mobiles also can have certain components to be installed. Those plugins might not have gone through a proper validation of security. And it can also lead to privilege escalations and other issues because it might not have the required permissions. Because most often, when these plugins are installed, to avoid any kind of negative feedback to the author or to the publisher, they will give higher privilege so that the constraint of access will not be there and they will have free access to all the functionalities and give you a better outcome. Right? For that purpose, they would have given a higher privilege than what is required. So privilege escalation from the plugins also escalates. And as I mentioned, these plugins or these models are also being taken from someone who's already using it. And there might be an IP. All this while we are talking about IP and we are talking about the intellectual property, right? So where someone else's intellectual property is being consumed by us and there could be legal repercussions around. So that's why securing the model or adopting the right model and right technology and security is important. So what we can actually do is ensure that whatever the solutions and plugins and software that are being used for the AI model need to undergo a thorough vulnerability scan or at least verify the publisher had actually done a proper due diligence and proper vulnerability assessment fixing. They do have a proper mechanism to periodically provide you the updates, fixes and all this stuff, right? And the solutions which these plugins and the models uses need to be ensured hardened so that configuration issues, misconfigurations and other challenges in this solution or other end should not be diverging information. So it should be hardened. You should have a process to harden those systems. And you should also have a proper access control mechanism. Not only the model, particular aspect of the components of the component, but also the data which it consumes. Role-based access control have to be employed. And the sources, or from where we are actually downloading this model. If it's an open source, is it being vetted? Or is there any libraries which have, vulnerabilities around? Is there constant fixes available? Do our organization have a mechanism to patch or capability to patch those softwares, right? Is it enrolled into our patch management solution, etc.? So those aspects need to be looked before we certify a model of BAS. And third is in terms of the usage. So from a usage standpoint, you would have heard this term called prompt injection. From an OWASP generative AI standpoint, prompt injection is one of the top vulnerability. So prompt injection is nothing but you are actually trying out the various inputs to get a better outcome, and in the process you will learn the system. So if phishing is a social engineering on the identities or the users, the prompt injection is a social engineering on the AI system. You're actually trying to phish the AI model to give away the information what you wanted, right? So you would have heard numerous stories that by ChatGPT would have prohibited from researchers to execute for malicious purpose or do some sort of a hacking solution from the product. By prompting, we are seeing like how people are using the ChatGPT or any other prominent AI system or generative AI system to do that. Right? So these are all prompt injections. Next is DOS. Of course, when you give more than the number of prompts which the AI system can take, then naturally it gives the AI system. Right? So that's what the denial of service attack or DOS attacks. Third is in terms of model theft. Again, in connection with the first item, prompt injection, if you give various types of prompts to the AI system, you will be able to understand what kind of answer it throws. So by fuzzing, basically fuzzing technique, by fuzzing multiple inputs, you will be able to know what is the model, and you will be able to adapt that model or have a copy of the model or develop the model to be line in the original solution. So you can have intellectual property issues by doing model theft. And as a CISO, we need to ensure that we should have proper monitoring in place in terms of the usage, how people are using it, where not they are using it, what kind of prompts are allowed in the solutions, is there any DDoS attack is happening on the AI systems, and is the DDoS that solution is being used for productivity purpose or from a core functionality purpose, and how do we protect it? Then it also so then in terms of machine learning detection and response, there are EDRs or detection and response solutions available which has capability to detect machine learning, which have capability to learn the AI behavior. Right? So this is the next gen, EDR or HDR functionality, which can also recognize the AI functionalities, or at least the prominent AI it can detect, the behavior it can detect, and it can tell you it is being used maliciously also. Right? So you should make use of those systems. Of course, from a monitoring standpoint, SIM and SOAR. Next gen SIM and SOAR with the AI plugins or AI behavior analytics are also being built in, need to be used so that you will have a better visibility of the usage of AI in your organization. So overall, considering all these three aspects, there are two more aspects which is obviously there in the organization, but the last one is something which I would like to cover. So this is a framework which organization can adopt from a BYOAI standpoint, the data, the model, and the usage. And of course, we have our infrastructure security, which is the existing cyber security need to be also cannot be ignored. Does not mean that you just need to protect this key and then we are there. You need to have the existing infrastructure security to be sharpened to adopt this particular system, because these are the systems which will support your behavior initiatives. Application like this is a key component, DLP, NAC, and all those functionalities, which is the organization need to be fine-tuned to align with the usage of AI. The third is in terms of BYOAI governance. Now, we are allowing users to bring out the deadliest weapon in our organization. Right? So we need to have proper policy in our organization. We need to have an acceptable usage for BYOAI also to be done, because not all BYOAIs should be allowed. We should classify what kind of BYOAI they can bring in, what level of access it can have, and all those policy level aspects need to be brought in. Education, we need to constantly educate our employees on the usage of BYOAI trainings, and we need to have proper governance and monitoring and management system. So with this, I've completed my session, and I would like to take up any question from the audience.